So
Is it just the both of us today?
yeah, it's always just the two people that come into the meeting because everyone thinks that there's a speaker. This is where I kept saying panelist, because come in together and everyone has the Zoom link. Everyone can be part of each discussion.
Sure.
But Teresa, we're not going forward. The format now is that you have to first tell us about the conference, and
Sure.
then we go forward.
Okay, so this is Vikram's World Mediators Conference. It is to set the vision, the mediation vision for 2026. The whole conference is about the evolution of mediators and mediation. It opened with Ken Cloke, brilliant session. And yes, it talks about all issues imaginable within the mediation sphere.
That's it. Perfect. If
That's
that's
it.
it, that's it. Have you been watching any of the sessions? Have you benefited from any of the sessions?
Of course, I think it's definitely expanded the way I can think about mediation. It's not as its utility is not as limited as I first thought it would be.
Perfect.
Yes.
So all sessions on the YouTube channel. You can go search on YouTube Mediator Vikram. You'll find the channel. And otherwise, mediatorvikram.com, you'll find the link and, of course, details of other shows and events. And now more than 320 videos out there. So there's lots to watch. So I keep saying, who needs Netflix?
Well, I think we can have both, I'm sure.
Yes, Lalita. We don't have to do a mediation with Netflix now. Yes, we can have all of them.
You can have talks with Netflix. I'm sure they'll love to have you.
So Lalita, now you're going to tell us about yourself and then we get into the topic. So please.
I am Talitha. I'm a practicing lawyer in Malaysia and I'm trying to get qualified as a mediator.
That's it?
My introductions are very short and sweet. I like to get to the point.
Talitha, why do you have to say you have to be qualified to be a mediator? Is there a restriction in Malaysia for you to practice as a mediator?
There is. So you're supposed to finish a certain number of training and then get registered as a mediator first.
But this is for the court system or outside?
Okay, maybe I can ask you a question. What do you mean by for the court system? Do you mean the formal mediation process within the court system?
Because the qualification in countries largely is for practicing as a mediator in the courts. So they have mediation centers in the courts. So for that, they require it and basically to put you on the roster. In countries, even in the court system, they have this provision that the parties can choose their mediator. So they don't have to go for any qualification or anything. They can choose whom they want. So that's also provided in the law in some countries. So it's all based on what the country has provided. So in Malaysia today, if you want to practice as a mediator outside, a private mediation, as we call it, two parties have a dispute and they call Talitha and say, look, be a mediator. First of all, is there a restriction there? One. Then if you are not qualified, nothing, you have the mediator mindset and you have done that mediation, that settlement agreement, what is the status of that settlement agreement? Is it a contract? Is it a court decree? What is it?
As far as I know, if the mediation within the context of the court system is actually conducted by the judges or certain court registrars within the court. So I've not experienced or seen private mediators being brought in to mediate a session where the court has directed you to go for mediation. That's the first level. And the second level, I think you're describing what we know as private mediation sessions. So where parties maybe have a mediation clause within the agreement and they can refer the matter to their choice of mediator. So I think in that sense, parties are free to choose whomever they want to mediate the matter. I have seen a situation where someone who is not qualified as a mediator get chosen by parties to mediate a dispute. I think where I'm coming from, I say I need to get qualified is so that I can get included in the list of the official list of mediators with, I think, the Bar Council, if I'm not mistaken, so that I can get work referred to me.
By whom?
I can get my name out there.
By whom? Who will refer the
Sorry,
work? Who will refer that work?
I believe it would be the Malaysia Mediation Center.
Okay, so the whole structure is that you have a mediation center, and it has something to do with the bar. And
It's really
so
can
this
be
is
linked. Yes.
when we talk about the bar, we talk about qualified lawyers. So that's one part. What about the people who are not lawyers? How do they? Because I'll tell you, this will be connected to way of life. It will be connected somewhere. But so those people who are not lawyers, who want, who parties choose as their mediator, is there any restriction on that?
You know, I've never really looked into that topic, so I cannot confidently answer you. Usually, the people I know who are mediators within Malaysia, they are usually lawyers. I've yet to meet one that's not a lawyer. So sorry, Vikram, I'm not too, not too sure of the answer there. Yeah.
Okay, so no issue. Because the point is, first of all, for me, I want it to open out to everyone. I mean, why is it should not be confined to lawyers? Definitely. The other thing is that the people who are out there who actually the parties trust, they trust them. They think that that person can help them resolve their dispute. So why should there be any restriction on parties' autonomy to appoint whom they want? Because that otherwise will go totally against the concept. So countries are normally not legislated on that. Some countries have provided for lawyers to be mediators. There is some, at least I know one country does that. But largely, I mean, that's the whole concept of mediation, that parties should be able to choose whom they want. So that part. Because the point is, let's go to way of life. For some people, mediation is a way of life. Yes. So now those people, you want them to, from this aspect, move to a point where they can get paid for it. So that's what the whole route for me is, that let's start there. People who are there, this is a way of life for them. They're giving the user experience, which is the best, because the users have identified them. So let's take them forward. So that's kind of what I was looking at. But Salita, this is your topic. You have to take it where you want. Don't go by what I said. You take it the way you want to take it, please.
I think it is our topic, since we both discussed it and thought that it would be a good, it will come to a good landing with what you want to discuss, actually, and not to limit who can be a mediator in today's world. I was just thinking about the topic earlier today, and I thought the topic mediator, a way of life, that's really interesting because it presupposes that someone is always within the dispute resolution context. Because to be a mediator means you are in a situation where you're constantly helping someone, usually two parties, to resolve a dispute. So to have it as a way of life, meaning you experience helping people resolve their disputes as a mediator regularly. So, and for someone like that to come to the fore, to be recognized for their skills, they have to be doing that quite regularly before you can, I guess, to use your words, to elevate them to a position where they get paid to use that skill.
Yeah. So first we have to go down to the point you said, regularly being a mediator or doing mediation. So some people give the example of mothers. Mothers are always mediating between the children. So for mothers, is it a way of life? Let's take that example because that's an easy one to understand, I think. So for mothers, is mediation a way of life? I think, I mean, yeah, yes.
Well, unless they have raised such lovely children that never fight, then I would imagine, by your definition, then yes, I think mothers, mediation would be a way of life. It's just that when we look at mothers, we see them as mothers. They do all sorts of things that are expected of a mother. And when someone looks at them, even when they're trying to mediate between two children who are fighting, but I wouldn't immediately think that she's a mediator. So yes, even though it can be a way of life for them, I can't imagine someone saying, okay, why not refer this dispute between two private individuals to this mother who every day resolves disputes between her children.
Look, the thing is that we are moving step by step. First, we just had come out with an example of whom it is a way of life for. So we were on that. So that part of it, Intern is here. Intern is going to first of all
Hi,
tell us
Intern.
why she's late. Intern, why are you late?
Oh no.
Malaysian timing, as I would call it. Hello, Talita, my fellow Malaysian.
Hi, Intern. Nice to meet you. I'm sure she was caught in a jam before this. That's what we Malaysians usually say. Yeah.
Is it just the three of us?
How many people you need a party? We can call people.
Oh, it's Mediator Vikram. I would think it's,
No.
So
point
glad
is,
it's now the three of us. It's been the two of us for the past 10 minutes.
Sorry.
Talita has had a lot in the 10 minutes. She's saying, why is someone else not joining in?
Yes, sorry. I'm here now.
Okay, so first, I think Intern, what we have to do, what we started with, Talita, you also have to do the same thing. The process for everyone is the same. You have to tell us about the conference first, then about yourself, then we'll move to the topic with you and we'll tell you what all we've discussed in the last 10 minutes. So please.
Okay, so firstly, thank you, Mediator Vikram, for inviting me once again. This time, I didn't just casually walk into one of your sessions, so thank you. Really delighted and honored to be part of this amazing conference. This is obviously my first year participating in this conference, and I find that it's been so effective for a lot of my fellow mediators in Malaysia and also the people I work with, in Nigeria, Peru, Japan, India, Philippines, and in France and other places, in the UK especially as well. And because of your sessions, they feel like, you're bringing light to a lot of the topics that people don't usually discuss as mediators. As Ms. Talita, who's also a fellow Malaysian, would tell you, mediation in my country is seen as a formal process. So it's almost like it's a legal process, right? So you need to be accredited and have a proper license, which I do. I am an accredited mediator in civil and commercial matters. I was accredited in London, and now I just got one from Sydney. And, it's so different because you follow the actual process and to settle conflicts out of court. But what you've done, legend, Mediator Vikram, as I call you, you've managed to highlight how mediation could be used in a different context, in more of an informal context, that's most effective. Like last night, I don't know whether most of the audience caught the arts and mediation, which I found amazing. Some of the things that you have to think outside the box, how mediation could be used in different ways. So yes, kudos and congratulations. Such an amazing mediators conference. And it's a lot of effort, a lot of work, even as when Mediator Vikram invites you to a session, you get this very elaborate invitation explaining everything, which I find it's a lot of effort and a lot of, it's a lot of hard work being put into making this conference a big success. So, congratulations, Mediator Vikram, and thank you for doing all that you do. It's amazing, right? Secondly, I mentioned that I'm a mediator, but I also dabble in informal mediation because, I don't know, Talita is a practicing barrister. I'm not. I have a law background, but I'm not a practicing lawyer. So I have to be creative in order to become a mediator, right? Because mediation in Malaysia, it's not very well known and it's not a preferred choice. So I usually get the whole, why do you want to become a yoga teacher, why do you want to practice meditation and all of that? I don't know whether you get that, Lita, but when I first moved back from London 7 years ago, that's all that I got. Even from the highest level of, the legal world will ask me, what is mediation? Even when I go with the Arbitration Center to create awareness as part of our young practitioners group at different universities, the students, final year students, the local universities will often ask me, what is ADR? What is mediation? Do you actually get money? Do you get paid? And more often than not, it's there's a saying that says mediators need to go for their own mediation, because you fight over cases. The pool is so small that you tend to want to hog cases. So most lawyers are at an advantage, like yourself, Talita, because litigation cases or cases where you need to resolve you can resolve through mediation, you would do that. And you can just turn the process, and that's already a mediation case. So I had to be creative in finding opportunities to practice my mediation skills. And, it's so apt that your topic today is mediation, a way of life. So I dabble a lot in informal mediation. So I do a bit of peer mediation training, in which I have to go in 20 minutes because we're doing a session later. So apologies, Mediator Vikram. I do a bit of training, mediation training in conflict areas with UNDP inside a mediator. I do, back in my country, I do a lot of trainings. I participate in trainings with the government for Rukun Tetangga or neighborhood watch organizations and bodies from all over the country. I also do a lot of trainings and community classes to impart mediation skills for better communication all around Malaysia for women and also for young professionals and things like that. So
I tell you, the best thing that Inthan does, she doesn't give you an opportunity. I've been trying for the last 5-6 minutes. When can I come in first? Only to
I don't know what you want me to do.
Only to say thank you. She doesn't give an opportunity. She goes in that flow. I said first for introduce.
Compensating for the 10 minutes she was not here.
So I'm compensating, and I know that it's like, what else am I supposed to say? But
I was wanting to first thank you. First, thank you for the nice introduction to the conference that you gave. I first had to, I don't know, I just could not get one break in that entire series of words.
Sorry, I will wait for you to ask me questions, or Talita to ask instead. Sorry.
No, questions come later. I'm just saying that.
I usually get invited to talk about myself. This is the only time where I get to, like, in Malay, you call it short sendiri, where you talk about.
Okay, so first of all, of course, you spoke about the conference, which was really nice, and then Inthan sent a really nice, very nice message saying that you have a fan following in Malaysia now. So I was really happy about that.
No, but we do, and we would really love to collaborate with you. I think a lot of people are so impressed by this conference, and people in the UK as well. They usually do this huge conferences to invite people like you, and it's amazing the topics that you picked were all really resonated with a lot of mediators, because they didn't see a space in those fields, right? And they're like, wow, you can do this, you can do that, which is really brilliant. And I must say, when I first met you, Mediator Vikram, and you told me about the conference, I was slightly skeptical, and I said, it's just going to be another conference. Are we going to talk about mediation and, like, the benefits and, like, why is it not being adopted? But I am so impressed, and there's nothing like it. So congratulations again, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll tell all these people that you're saying who've been impressed to send messages.
So Malaysian. This girl is such a Malaysian.
She's like non-stop in one of those fast trains. It's like cut from Malaysia to Singapore.
I'm slightly nervous because, I came in late, and then you just said, okay, talk about yourself.
I'll tell you where we
are. Over to you.
Let me tell you where we are in the discussion. Basically, because the topic is way of life. So basically, we were trying to get at, for whom is it a way of life? If you have to give an example. So because Talita could not really see that way of life aspect of it. So I said, let's look at it from the mother's perspective. Is it a way of life for mothers? We'll connect it later, because of course Talita said, look, I can't think of them being looked at as mediators, only because they are in some way mediating between children. So she was that way of life she understood. Now to connect it to mediation as people understand it. Let's not go by people, because we are not going to go by that. We have to create our own understanding around it. So we are looking at it that, okay, this is a way of life for some people. We identified some people. We'll go beyond that. We'll identify more people as we go along. But then we move to as mediation, the formal aspect of it, which a lot of people keep talking around it. So that's one aspect which we have to touch, and how do we get people for whom it's a way of life to that end? That's one. The other thing is that, of course, I have to talk about my last symposium last year, which was Woodstock of mediation, as someone said. I like to boast about it. Please allow me that much. So the Woodstock of mediation had 97 speakers from 45 countries. The theme was mediation in our culture and traditions. So I said, well, what was the idea behind it? I said, people are not familiar with that word, but they're familiar with the process. So let's connect them with the process. Because that's where it's going to start. So, Intan, we also discussed before you came in the Malaysian perspective that does a person who's outside the court system, because of course there might be something in the court system which is not relevant to me, outside the court system, which people call private mediation, is there any restriction for parties to appoint whom they want as the mediator? So it turns out there doesn't seem to be any, but please throw some more light on this if there is something more than that you can tell us.
Okay, so when it comes to, as Salita would say, from a formal process, I think both parties will have to agree because there's only a pool of mediators. So from what I understand, at the arbitration center, they will be given a list of names and then both parties will have to agree, I want that one. So mostly they would pick mediators that would be familiar with the subject. That I understand. But also in my capacity as an insider mediator with UNDP, when it comes to community mediation and mediation when it's not at the arbitration center, where it's mediation clinic or mediation in other aspects, usually it's an insider mediator, so someone with authority, right? And usually when it comes to that, it's just agreed by custom, right? So whether it is the Ketua Kampung in English, the head of the village, or whether it's the priest or the imam. So I think in that context, they have a say. In informal mediation, community mediation stuff, they have a say, but they usually feel like, oh, it's already decided. We know who's going to mediate this because we trust them. So in some areas, like I said, how I learned about mediation because of my father's career, and I always say this on my Instagram and all my speeches, is actually from the Orang Asli, so the Aboriginal villages in Pahang, where my father was MP, was a statesman and MP for many, many years, since I was 6 months old to the age of 20, right? So every weekend would be spent mediating their conflicts and disputes. And that's how I really took up mediation.
But Intan, you have to at this point tell us that if your father was mediating, is it that he had the authority to impose a solution on them or not? Or was it really what we understand as mediation, where the person who's the mediator does not impose a solution on the parties? So was it mediation?
Okay,
really?
So in a community mediation, he does impose a solution.
And let's not call that mediation.
And then, so from the UN context, an insider mediator will usually impose a decision, and people will often listen. But obviously, when it comes to the formal process, it is, of course, as we all.
For the moment, right? What we'll do is, for the moment, I mean, forever, but let's see for the moment. For a moment, we're going to leave out anything where a decision is imposed by someone, because that's not mediation at all, because we will go through. Of course, I talk about the definition in the Singapore Convention only because it has been signed by 55 countries. And if there is I'm saying if there is a definition in your legislation in Malaysia, we'll have to go by that definition for Malaysia. If it is there, I don't know. I mean, that's
it's not there. It's not there.
So then we have to find something.
But as a mediator, as you know, even not imposing a certain decision, right? That's not mediation. Of course, you have to come to that conclusion by going through the process. Even when you're not taking it in a legal process, you're taking it in a community level. As you know, you train all your community mediators. You need to mediate it like a real process in order to get to the end game. But most of the time, by convention or by custom, they would often kind of adhere to that decision when it comes to community mediation. I don't know how does it.
Intan, the thing is, I've tried to distinguish this aspect, that these people exist in villages also, that who actually have the authority to impose a solution. So and in countries, what is happening is people are connecting mediation and using these, either it's a like you said, village head or whatever, whoever there is, they're connecting mediation with that because they think it's an easier way to talk about mediation, but they're actually getting it totally wrong for the people user, because that's not the direction it goes. There are people on the other side whom, if you tell them what is mediation, as in person doesn't impose a decision on you, you have your free will, they know those people also. So actually, these are two different sets of people available in villages. The ones who are out there who actually do mediation, they got left out because what happened was politics came in. Into even at the village level, politics came in as to the social standing or the political standing or the religious standing of this individual, who then had that respect, and then they told them what to do. And that is what later, as we went along, people said, oh, that person does mediation. No, that person doesn't do mediation, so leave it out of the picture. Talk about those people who exist, who actually do mediation. People go to them, they actually assist them, but the parties themselves reach their conclusion. So those people exist. So I am targeting those people, and for them it's a way of life. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I
But
guess
no, but
That's
first
where I
Talitha,
come
Talitha has to come. Talitha hasn't spoken, and it's not something that Talitha is. It's not easy for
No,
Talitha,
but
for us to get Talitha to speak.
yeah.
We have
Okay,
to get
sorry.
Talitha. Yeah, Talitha.
Yeah. But can I just add for 2
No,
minutes?
no, no,
One
no,
one
no,
second.
no.
1 second.
Okay.
I think that's the foundation of what I want to say. But like when you said there's someone who's like completely neutral coming in, because impartiality, right, is so important.
Neutral, yeah. Neutral, not a word. No, neutral, not a word I use.
And
Neutral, not a word I
impartiality.
use. Impartial. Yeah.
And that's where people like me come in. Community mediator comes in, which is political free, and you're doing it just to resolve conflicts, right? And that's where you need the skills to come in. So that's why even as an insider mediator, that's very important. But I'm just saying like how it has been done for many, many years.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that.
Yeah,
Because this is not, it's not new to you. It's happening everywhere. So let Talitha,
Okay.
yes, Talitha.
yeah, I think that comes down to really the awareness of what mediation really is. I think where, if I'm hearing Vikram correctly, I think he's just pointing out that the process of mediation is really facilitating the two disputing parties to reach the solution without the mediator trying to impose a solution on either party or on both parties. But I do think Vikram, in Intan's context as an insider mediator, I think that's what she was referring to. Sometimes these communities or these people who come to her look up to her for a solution. So in that sort of context, she may need to perhaps first address a solution, and it may come off as imposing one. Maybe Intan can elaborate a little bit more.
Intan comes later. Let me pick up from where you were saying. I am saying that there is one whole concept of mediation which was thrown around the world, which said the mediator should not even suggest a solution. Look, I'm not that purist. I don't want to get. I'm not that purist. I don't want to get into that at all.
Yes, there's the purist and the intervene.
I'm not that. I don't even call that purist. Let them call themselves purist. I don't call that. It's a mediation. It is parties. You are assisting them. You will take it as it comes. And from my side, if I suggest, it is open to the parties to accept or not accept. That is the only point we're looking at. Do they have a choice? That's all. I am saying, in last symposium also, I was talking about it, that social pressure, because of if you accept something, there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with it? I live in a community. I want to live in that community. This mediator suggested that this could be a good solution. I think it's a good thing if I have to stay in harmony in the community. I accept that. It's not that I don't have a choice. I have a choice, but social pressure is not a bad thing, which people try to make it out. No, it has to be something which there is no such imposition of any kind. That's a self-imposed thing that they feel they're doing it because the community wants it. So I think that is where sometimes people go into a different direction. But first thing is that I was talking about those people whom I said, one, you take out all this aspect of, okay, political, social, economic, standing, all that. Let's look at those people who are out there who actually do it as a way of life. That's where we're connecting to the way of life aspect of it.
To the topic today, yes. Coming back to the topic today.
Yeah. So there you want Intan to come in. Yes, Intan. Now it is you to come in to talk about those people who do it as a way of life. And first of all, do they exist? That's the starting point. For me, I know they exist, so because I've spoken to them. So that's a different thing. But I'm not saying that you have to agree with it. Have you seen them in the people that you have met, be it in communities, it could be in organizations. Community, what is community? An organization is a community, a residential area is a community, a business community is there. All communities. So very nicely, what people, whenever we talk about community, they talk about a certain, maybe a group of people living together kind of thing. A community is a wide thing. So in each community, are there people, or any community that you've come across, people for whom it is a way of life, people trust them, and all that process is happening? Yes,
Okay.
Intan, tell
Okay,
us.
so thank you, Mediator Vikram, and thank you, Talita, for that. Yes, I've always had I mean, don't get me wrong, I've always, when I say I pick up mediation, I understand that as a mediator, you are merely a facilitator. You are the driver, you drive the conversation, you don't decide. But when you ask me that as an insider mediator, people tend to, like you said, people tend to have a certain level of respect for, for certain figures in villages or places like that. But I think when it comes to mediation, there's always that process. And as a mediator, whether you're well known, whether people look up to you, there's always that process, and you adhere to that process in order to create a win-win solution, right? Otherwise, they would just do it like a hearing, like a tribunal or whatever. That's completely different. So in this case, when you ask me about a community or an organization, and whether people do it as a way of life, I think conflicts. Conflicts are you're everywhere, right? At every level of society, and that's why mediation is so useful in different contexts, right? So when I meet with a certain community organization, it is very important as well to understand that how they handle conflict may be different to another organization or another community or another group of people.
That's really interesting.
It's true, right? And then in Malaysia as well, where we're multiracial, and we have different people living different, adopting different way of lifestyle. It's very, very important to be very mindful of these things, right? And it helps that, when my involvement with Mediators Beyond Borders International, for instance, where we are exposed to different parts of the world and how they mediate to different parts of the world, how they respect and how they honor different communities. In terms of the process, even from the opening statements to the different caucuses, you need to be so mindful of that. So to answer your question, you asked me whether...
What was the question? Now she's going to ask me
what was the question? Was the way of life. You wanted to ask.
That's what I like about it. She can speak.
Mediation has a meaning,
right? Yeah. So I'm saying that yes, it does exist in different communities. And I think Talita and I are blessed. It's so blessed to be able to be exposed to different communities in Malaysia. But in terms of adopting the best person to mediate, I think that is still sort of a problem at the moment, because I know in different places in Malaysia, mediation is not seen as mediating, right? Sometimes people say, oh, it's just negotiating, or it's just, even judges, I'm sure judges, I know judges tell me,
you guys want I understand what I'm hearing is you guys want one general conversation. Let's chat. Then Nathan says, oh, I have to leave. That's what
no, I know. I already delegated my duties at 3C, so it's fine. Okay. But
look, what we're trying to get at, I'll tell you, let me give you the larger objective behind it is that first, like I said, let's start with the basics. Are there people for whom it's a way of life? First of all, they were starting. That was the point that we were starting. Then we are moving from there. We are moving into, first of all, how do people perceive them and the process. So no names of mediator, mediation. We're cutting the names out for the moment. But how do people perceive that? And then when we move along, if we have to promote and develop mediation, taking these people for me is a very important aspect of it. So how do we then move with people for whom it's a way of life? How do they move it forward? How do we bring it to the people? Because one end you will have this whole formal thing which will be promoted, because the organizations who do the certifications and training make a lot of money out of it. So they can promote it in that manner, and they can go out and say, you're only a mediator if you get this, otherwise you're not a mediator, which kind of course, Nanchang is here. We will talk about this class distinction that is created. Suddenly, those are mediators, and the people who are actually on the ground, who actually for whom it's a way of life, are doing it, suddenly they are not mediators, kind of class distinction. So we have to be very, very careful about it, because what we are putting out is on the long term will be the worst that can happen for mediation. Because yes, you will create these classes, you classes and not in the teaching classes, the classes in people, and then we'll say, oh, mediation is not taking off, because people who could be connected with the process suddenly even question that aspect. Oh, this guy is not supposed to be doing mediation, this is not mediation, they do it there, mediation happens there, those kind of people do it, they have that certification. So we have to be very careful about that, because mediation hasn't grown for me because of that, I feel, because the people who actually had it in them, they were kind of kept away, because I mean, in the sense from that process, as people use that word. And then obviously people, that user experience wasn't there. So you have to create the user experience with people whom people trust as their mediator. You don't throw someone out from the air and there's a tuck, this guy is going to be your mediator, this is the only kind of mediator. So Nanchang has had something very interesting to say in that session on profession. So I played that yesterday also. Nanchang, I played yours, but I only think, Nanchang, what is happening now is, on one end you gave a beautiful speech, but on the other end, what happened is you are promoting certifications now. That's the worst thing I'm seeing. How do I balance the two? Here I'm saying Nanchang is like the spokesperson. He said such nice things about what's happening in villages and those people who, I mean, there's an entry barrier and all that. And then Nanchang, what happened now? Your only eyes only see these posts of yours promoting certifications only. What's happening now? Tell me how this has changed.
Well, the issue is that, you know, for some of us, we understand that being a mediator has less to do with the issue of certification. But you see, some of us have acquired the certification, so we can talk about it. If you meet someone who does not have the certification and is saying that certification is not necessary.
Me. I'm the one that everyone talks about. That, oh, anyone can go out and say I'm a mediator. That's me. I'm part of that gang. I represent those people, and you can't take us for granted. You cannot do this to us. We are. If the user has to get that experience, that all that matters. So I'm there. I am that example. Always give me as example.
Okay, so you are an example. But what we are saying is that it is not the certification that makes someone a mediator. That message is very clear. It is not. Being a mediator, just as the topic for today, is a way of life.
Yeah.
If you are a mediator, right from time, you will see some of us that grow up in the villages, you will see a situation where two people are fighting and other people just sit around and they are watching and they are encouraging them to fight. And you see another person comes and is not comfortable. He comes in, he's trying to separate these people fighting. And sometimes they even give him a blow unintentionally. He receives the blow. So you see that this is an attitude, is a habit, is a way of life that you don't need to go to any program or acquire any certification to inculcate or develop. Is inbuilt, is natural, and some people, due to the nature of their society, they live in a crisis-prone area, and they feel that, oh, I need to learn how to resolve dispute, or I need to intervene in conflict since I am in an environment that is prone to this kind of thing. So they decided to put themselves out there, and then they begin to acquire this training. In fact, you can learn it through, for example, you see our elders in the villages, sometimes when they are interacting and they bring disputes before them and they are trying to resolve them, you see younger ones sitting there also learning how these things are being done. You know, when you learn, there are two ways to learn something. It's either you learn through practical experience or you learn through training in organized settings like the institutions that award this thing. So we cannot discard those people who learn through the unconventional way of learning, because some of them actually have the necessary skills and the expertise, except that we cannot quantify them in terms of certification.
The
But
best
when
part,
they,
yeah. Yeah, and
yes,
the
we
best part
cannot,
about what you're saying about best part about that is that these people are actually learning in a mediation. That's actually a mediation happening. This is not a mock mediation. This is not a drama. This is actually
yes.
happening. These are real parties sitting there. They're the real parties who reach a solution. So that's a very different kind of a learning. Yeah.
Yes, so you see in that kind of atmosphere, in that kind of environment, somebody can develop, in fact, somebody can develop interest in mediation when he sees that a crisis or a dispute is resolved amicably, and at the end of it, you see parties very happy, they apologize to themselves, and then they are going on. Someone will develop interest and say, I am interested in this kind of thing. You know, so but when, for example, it is resolved in the court or by imposition on a particular person, you know, when maybe a group of elders just feel this is the way, just do it this way, and the parties are not involved, you can see the attitude of the parties who are directed to do something against their will. You know, so but where parties participate and they contribute, and at the end of it, a settlement is reached, a lot of people are encouraged and they develop that attitude. So tomorrow, when they see a situation, even with children, even with elderly ones or peers or colleagues, they will want to intervene to see how they will resolve this conflict. And some of us who are married and have children, we have these situations happening over and over. I feel that every parent is a born mediator, because in one way or the other, you are going to be interacting with your children, and then disputes between them are settled. Sometimes you have to stay in the middle, you have to stay as a neutral to be able to resolve dispute between your child, one of your child, and the other. You see, when you do these things, you keep developing the art, you keep refining your skills in resolving these disputes. It's just that you don't have some qualified terms or some of these accustomed terms that we use in saying, oh, this person is now a certified or chartered mediator, you know, oh, you have gone for skill enhancement training and you have a certificate for it. For them, they don't have any.
Nanchang, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. You're back. You're just muted for a second.
Yes.
Yeah. When Nanchang talks, everyone just listens. So Nanchang has such nice things to say, but only thing is on the other side, when I see him doing what he does on the social media, I have to talk to him about that. But I think that's another area we have to discuss. So Nanchang, you were supposed to be the spokesperson for people for whom it's a way of life, and you were so nicely talking about the people in the village and how you were concerned for them and how we have to develop things there. So okay, so please, you have to. But let me just get. Talitha is very impressed with what you're saying. She wants to come in, so let her just come in. Yeah, Talitha. So,
I think Vikram has been trying really, really hard to steer the conversation back to mediation as a way of life.
no, perfect what he said. I'm perfectly all right with what he said. Yeah.
Correct. And so just tapping on to that, I think one of, as Nanchang and Vikram has said, one of the good examples of someone with inborn mediator skills, whether you want it or not, would be mothers and by extension, fathers as well. The other context that I can think of where mediation is practiced but not really seen as mediation would be, say, in a workplace context. Someone in leadership at workplace will have to resolve disputes among colleagues or even subordinates when something happens at work and it's not up to someone's satisfaction. Long story short, we call them office politics, I'm sure. So yes, that's another that's another context that I can immediately think of where mediation can be a way of life.
No, but Talita,
resolving-
a little bit we have to move away from the fact, because you said people in leadership position, because for a moment we'll have to also move out from this aspect that only people in positions of power do mediations. There will be people with a mediator mindset at all levels in the organization. You
I
have to let
agree with
them
you.
come out. But I'll give you one example with which, of course, Nanchang, we discussed in the earlier session, that there's a road accident. Suddenly, there's a group of people who come there. There will be some people who will take the side of one person, the other people will take the side of those people. So I call those the advocates, the lawyers.
The lawyers.
Then one person will come in, no, you don't fight, stay away from it, stay, don't have to fight and all. That's the peacemaker, because I have all categories that I'm pushing. So peacemaker is the one who says, no, sit, resolve it. He's just telling them to resolve it. Then comes the mediator who actually understands the entire issue, explains things to them. Could be a lot of things. It could be, look, if you go through this process, there will be this court case, this will be that will guy will file a counter case against you. Whatever, I don't know how they will do it. They have their way. So right there on that scene, for people whom it's a way of life, has suddenly resolved a dispute, or going to be a dispute in the courts, could have gone into the courts, gone through for a criminal case. So for them, it's a way of life. That's another example. So we'll get more examples like this as we go along. So that's, we have to look at it from the perspective of these people who are out there. For them, they don't know that they don't know they did mediation. If you ask them, what is mediation? Oh, is there arbitration? People still have that concept in their head. That familiarity, the word hasn't happened. But if you connect them to the process, totally they'll understand. They click like that for people. So that is the first thing that I want to connect people with, the people for whom it's a way of life. So that's one real important part. And Inthan, to be able to stay quiet for so long, it cannot happen. Inthan, please come in.
I do have something to say. So it's interesting that you say the road accident, but what we should also think is, how do this like inbuilt mediators, how are they inspired to just go, look, this is how we solve it? So one way, well, I mean, in Malaysia, or from my experience, I don't know whether Talita have similar experience. In schools, we used to have to choose different societies to join. I don't know whether Talita, you had that kind of, whether you join Girl Guides or like for guys, Boy Scout, and, other societies like this, which would train you to want to take on this leadership role or feel responsible in society, and I think that's very, very interesting, Vikram, that you said that it's not about the position of power, and that's when you realize that, I have a responsibility now. It's just not like that. It's everyday life where you see that you feel the need to resolve conflicts, and I find that very, very interesting. And I think,
when you said how do they, because what you said was how do they get inspired? The point is, this is where I kept talking about my series, that evolution of a mediator. The whole idea behind that series, both of you haven't watched any of the episodes. I can see from your faces you haven't done that. Let me tell you about the series. The idea was to tell people, what is he talking about? What is this evolution of a mediator? Okay.
Too long sometimes.
We're
like
about to find out.
episode is like, wow, how do you talk for this long?
So what basically that was the first show that I started. Okay, so that's the if you go to my channel, that's the first thing. Why did I start that? Because I said, look, mediators are not made in 40-hour factories. Lots goes behind that. So let's look at these mediators. Like Ken Cloke, for me, is a person who's like the face of a mediator in the world. So I said, let's talk to him about his life. So we went into details about his life. Of course, going backwards to his parents, of course, maybe in his case, the grandparents, I don't know, the grandparents came in, parents, and then him growing up, the way he grew up, where he grew up, then his movement, what he did in school, then he moved into college, his association with the civil rights movement, all these experiences there. Then he became a judge. All those, every aspect of his life is important for the person to be whom they are. And each of those things, we'll call it inspiration, call it development, evolution, whatever. I mean, look, words don't matter here. The point is that there is some seed in some people. It will come out in a small way somewhere. It can maybe not, like a banyan tree might not give, large tree is not giving you the shade, but that little one is also important. And as that tree keeps growing, that whole whatever, and like I'm saying shade, but give people that whole comfort that yes, when we go, this is a safe space, which is what we keep saying, that creating a safe space for people. So slowly that tree becomes bigger. People get associate this person with that kind of experience. So that is how, for me, mediation would grow, when people connect to these people who are around them, They're they're not alien to mediators. Let me tell you that. It is not, if we, whatever regulations, anyone keeps trying, these people will exist, they will keep mediating, and no one can stop it. So according to me, if a country thinks that we can even regulate people doing mediation and we will decide who the mediator is going to be, it cannot work. And if you do that, then either you're falling into some trap set by people who have a vested interest, maybe, but otherwise it can't happen. So that's where
Although
my connection comes from.
Although
Thank
Vikram, sorry, Intan, a quick thought, and then Intan, you can go ahead.
Yeah, it's very rare that Talita is actually starting off, so we have to give her that thing. Yes, Talita.
Thank you for being very gracious to give me that time. No, I was just thinking the way that Vikram is describing all these mediation experiences, it sounds like it's on a very informal level. And how then do you create that space where they can go beyond that informal situations and become a mediator on a bigger, more I'm not sure how to describe it, on an expanded scale and not just within their little pockets of situations.
No, which is what we're getting at, because the thing is, there are various categories of disputes, first of all. And Nanchang had picked it up in his session also. The fact is that things are happening at the village level, which go into the lowest court in the country. The lowest court, whatever the district court, whatever the name of that court will be, the first level. So aren't those disputes important to be resolved? Because from there, then matters move in appeals to the higher courts. But the matter starts from there only. And those matters are matters which actually can be resolved by these people who are out there. And there is no concept of wanting to create some kind of a proper branded army of people. No, the idea is to resolve disputes, however that happens. But yes, over time, people have to, of course, value that aspect. The point is, the first thing is, we understand any activity when people are paid for it and they do it on a regular basis. That's how we think of any activity. We had a discussion of whether it's a profession or not. All those discussions can keep. I mean, there's academic discussions. The first thing is that, can we get these people to do it on a regular basis because they're actually providing value to society? And second, can they be paid for it, or they should be paid for it? But how does that work? Because we had a session on who pays. But that part of it is also important. How does society pay? Does individuals pay? How do we take care of these people? Because if we do not take care of them, obviously they'll be doing other things. You'll today also find out, you just go pick up one village or one community. Those people are doing it because it's a way of life for them, but they've never looked at this being the way to earn money. They never looked at it that way. But we have to move the whole concept of society, saying that, look, if you do not value these people and you're going through this route of what the colonizer gave us, which was the whole setup of the courts, because the conditioning of your mind was done that dispute resolution only happens in courts. This is not dispute resolution, that is dispute resolution. So first, that conditioning of mind that has taken place, we are fighting that mindset. And it's not, you might not maybe look at it, but if you, I mean, really talk to people. I mean, Intan, of course, knows Chijioke. There was one show of mine there's a show called In Conversation with Beautiful Mind. So I was talking to Chijioke. His son walked in. So I asked his son, look, if there is a fight, do you help your friends to resolve it? So I won't do it because the teacher will not like it. The concept of that authority figure being there to resolve disputes, it is ingrained in that little child's mind. Can you imagine what conditioning of mind is happening over time? How do we break that from their mind if we cannot create an atmosphere for them where it is their dispute, It is them resolving it, they identifying the mediator. That is what I was telling Chijoke in that session on peer mediation, that we have to create that environment of actually the children resolving a dispute. That's empowerment of the children, whom they identify the mediator, they go through the process, and they resolve a dispute. The other larger activity of conflict coaching, conflict management, non-violent communication, all those can, that's it. Okay, that's an activity that definitely should happen. Be a good human being, whatever religion tells you that, good people tell you that, definitely do that. But when you talk about mediation and you say peer mediation, the actual activity of mediation gets lost. So I am saying connect those children also, communities also, to the people who actually sit and help you resolve a dispute. Not those people. There is one category of people who will tell you to be a good human being. Why are you fighting? You should not fight. Required. Peacemakers are required. Definitely they should be there. But then there's a skill that is the mediation skill. When you actually assist them to resolve a dispute, it's not as easy as people might want to make it to be.
No.
Oh, you have
No.
to know, you should not fight in this world. You should have to be very good human beings. That doesn't resolve the dispute. Okay, then we have the spiritual gurus that you go to and then you rise above everything else. So let that also
That's a
happen.
different topic altogether, I think,
Exactly.
Vikram. Yeah.
Yes.
Another way of life.
But
yeah.
okay, Inthan can't stay out of the
That's
discussion for so long.
spot on.
Yes, Inthan,
No,
please come in.
No, I do agree, because in certain, I don't know, from my, again, personal experience, when I see that in society, especially in villages, when you see a potential someone like that, someone trustworthy, someone that everyone likes, someone that everyone sort of gravitate to, someone that has that qualities, right, to resolve conflicts and be impartial and be responsible, more often than not, the first question that this person would get, whether this person is still in school or in college or very young, would be, why don't you join politics? So I'm hoping that in the future we would have more people in the next generation, the younger generation to come, to be able to be that person, to be that key person in every community,
But Inthan,
without having to be in politics, right?
Inthan, in that session of ours,
Yeah.
that mediators as leaders and leaders as mediators was about this. We started, this actually started in my symposium, which was the Heart, Soul, Spirituality Symposium in April. Sarah is in Australia. She works with the indigenous communities. And in that discussion, it came out that these people who are those leaders there actually have the mediator mindset. They're actually working in that way, and people actually look, the authority figure telling you what to do. Maybe it's not the same way everywhere. Some people are actually trying to work a consensus. They're trying to build that whole dispute resolution from the whole the people coming to a solution themselves. So they have that mindset. So finally, Inthan, the whole concept is that we have to, what is this whole grassroots movement that I'm talking about? When people identify these people who provide that safe space, they're impartial, all that, all these, every good thing that we talk about, they have all that. Then we have to tell society, first value them, and then they should be your leaders, because what they bring are, they're going to actually bring people together. They're trying to build consensus. The whole, again, I will go back to colonization, that whole divide and rule that was made, what the colonizer did, because that's the only way you rule over people. You have to keep dividing them. So what they did to, so these people will bring them together, because politics, look, politics has got a bad name because that's the way it was practiced. It doesn't have to be. Same way lawyers have got a bad name because the way it is practiced, but it's a noble profession. And
it's
we
true.
have to feel that, yes, there are people who are going to continue it as a noble profession. Same thing with politics. We don't have to just give up on the word, but we have to get the right people, these people. So it's a long movement, Inthan. It's a long drawn movement.
My dream in an ideal world, or in an ideal Malaysia, is to see mediators being, being raised or being shaped from such a young age. That's why I think, like you said, Chijioke, 3Cs, which I'm abandoning now for you, Mediator Vikram. 3Cs, they're doing such a good job in promoting peer mediation. I hope to do something like that in Malaysia, but I already know, like you said.
No, Inthan, I told you, JK, also, look, let's not call that peer mediation, because the children are not sitting down and actually learning how to resolve a dispute. Today, we are just telling them that, okay, you people should not fight with each other. You should be talk to each other nicely. That's not mediation, because we are not here as spiritual gurus. Like I said, that's a different activity altogether. We are here to actually help them resolve the dispute, to actually get these children to learn, or to be able to empower themselves first, to be able to identify those with the mediator mindset that they can do it. No one else has to do it for them. The teacher is not supposed to do it for you. Then
No,
it's
I think the training, the peer mediation, not you don't like training, peer mediation way of doing things is that we try to tell them to become mediators themselves. Instead of, saying, don't fight everyone, you got to be good. No, it's how do you resolve? Because conflicts will happen even in the playground, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, since I met Mediator Vikram, and you said that, it's to pick out people with a mediator mindset.
Yes.
And I used that for the peer mediation. I said, you only pick out people with the natural mediator mindset, and then tell them how. And that's an amazing concept.
Okay, now Nanchang has to come in, because Nanchang also cannot stay away for so long from the discussion. Nanchang, what is you change your hat? Is it? Wasn't it black when you came in earlier?
Lighting.
It's nice.
What hat are you wearing now?
Yeah, it looks like
I'm staying close to
looks like it.
I'm
And does it
staying
have an
close to
inscription?
a green.
Yeah.
Is there an inscription there? What is on the hat?
Inscription.
It's just a design.
Nice.
It's just a design, yes. So I think that when it comes to mediation as a way of life, when we check our environment, we will discover that we're actually practicing mediation. For example, for those who are either Christians or Muslims, or they have a religion, sometimes you have different kinds of disputes, even in the church or mosques. And then you see sometimes they come to the spiritual leaders, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened. And then you see in some instances where the spiritual leaders or the leaders in their own small groups will have to sit down to find out, oh, what happened? Can you tell me your own side of the story? You also tell me your own side of the story. And then after all, they're able to work out a settlement that is acceptable to both parties. That's mediation. So a way of life, if you check especially as Africans, we have settings that encourage this kind of things. We have them all around, so I feel that when we begin to help people to understand that what they are doing actually is called mediation, maybe they will begin to become sensitive. They'll begin to know that, oh, I am doing something that is called this, because some of them who do those things don't actually know that they are actually practicing mediation. They just feel that they are just encouraging peace between...
No, I'll tell you, Lanchang, the thing is that exactly what the whole idea behind taking you through that definition of mediation was, from the Singapore Convention, I was taking you from there, is that, and even the one that you have, or the draft that you sent me about the Nigerian law, you see the definition of mediation there. It says whatever word, mediation, conciliation, or whatever word, the concept being the process, that the person assists you in resolving a dispute and doesn't have the authority to impose a solution. In your law, which is the bill that you showed me, the same thing comes out. So we don't have to push the word mediation. There's some concept someone had that we have to keep pushing the word mediation. If there is a normal local usage of a word, I don't know what could be. In here, there is a word called Sulh. Sulh, maybe you will also connect. Malaysia, they'll connect to Sulh. So Sulh is a word used by people in this country also. So why not connect them with that word? Why are we so good?
We also have Sulhu. Sulhu in Islam, I think.
Exactly.
Sulhu.
It is.
Yes.
With us, the thing is that we've taken it because obviously we've had influences for everywhere, but it is used by every people. I mean, it's a normal usage. And it's not a religion-based thing at all. It's just someone basically settling a dispute. That's all it is. So that is what we have to connect them with. Don't alienate them by using a technical word and push it in a technical manner. You're moving people away from a process that actually they're already connected with. We're disconnecting with them from that. And people who are connected with the process, for whom it's a way of life, we are saying, no, these people don't do mediation. This other class does mediation. then how will mediation develop? If the people who are actually doing it, the people who are benefiting from them, we are wanting to cut that cord. No, this is not mediation. So I think there's a larger discussion on this that we definitely have to put down, because look, on the other end, we will have institutions who will keep saying that certifications, accreditation. Yesterday we had a discussion. There was Ivana from the International Mediation Institute talking about their process. Their process works that there is some people who train, and then there is an evaluation, and then there is a log kept of user experience, and then they look at certification. I am starting from the base point. I start from user experience. Now, you actually don't have to go anywhere beyond that. The user is giving you the person. So we started off from the basic thing that was required, which all this process was going through just to get that user experience, that the person should get a good experience. So we have those people already. We start from there. Now what comes up is skill development. What these, I said, on the other hand, these institutions go through what they call training and all that package can easily be given to those people who have that mindset, who are actually giving that user that experience. I said, well, yesterday I was talking about it. I'm going to structure a program. People from the best in the best people who from in the world on that topic, they will talk about those topics, whichever ones we want to cover. We think that these are things that these people should be. There also there'll be categories. Let's take them slowly. Let's not put the whole complex thing around mediation that suddenly they're lost. What all are you throwing at us? That things happen gradually. We'll do that. But the point is that part of it is the easiest thing to do. Content, there is enough content on my channel. All the best in the world have spoken about things. People can watch that. The only thing is that we have to be able to understand that the user, their experience, and them identifying people is the way we have to start. That creates that foundation, and for that way, people with that for whom it's a way of life are our connection to that. So I am working from that end. That other end, let it also. I mean, everything. I think sometimes people think that Vikram is on this other side, and no, I'm on everyone's side, because of the fact that when we get these people out, and then they get interested. Oh yes, this is what I really want to do in my life. It is a way of life, but this becomes my life in terms of obviously my livelihood, and I want to do it all the time. So they start doing that. And then they'll start looking at, okay, I want to enhance my skill. I want to read. I want to listen. So they will go into whatever, of course, is term training. I'm saying, let's call it skill development. They'll go for that. Then there is further, if there is certification that they feel is necessary because the entire concept has taken off for them, they can do that. There's nothing. I'm actually feeding the best people who've given the best user experience into the mediation world. How am I alienating the process from what people are going
I don't
on?
think so. And I think to do what Vikram is saying, I think on a grassroots level, I think awareness is very important. And you need the people who would spearhead this awareness. I think like something what Intan is doing with the peer mediation system within the schools, I think that's a good start. And I think we need more people like that on the ground, spreading awareness on what mediation actually is and what it can do.
Absolutely.
Let's do it, Talita.
Let's get connected after this.
You're still not connected. That's really sad. You guys are not connected yet.
Let's do it, Nanchang. Let's come.
Let's change the world.
I put all links to all your profiles on the schedule.
Intan doesn't have LinkedIn.
I put the Instagram.
I will. I was against this LinkedIn. I had a personal conflict there, but yeah, I will.
I put her Instagram link. I put an Instagram link. You can connect on Instagram. What is the problem? Look at here the panelists. If you go to the panelists, maybe tell people, look, you've got all the names here. So you can go here. No one even clicks this sheet. That's the best. But you guys go to Intan. You click here. You go to her Instagram profile.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think where I'm getting at is Intan, we need to get connected just beyond the Instagram page after this.
We will.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
please
I will
But I have to ask Vikram, you have a team behind you.
You have? What is that? Intan?
I think we lost her for a bit.
Hello?
Connection issues.
Intan, you were saying something? We lost you.
Okay. Okay.
No, we don't want to go to the garden bar. Nanchang, you sitting in a bar and talking.
Yeah.
Whatever you say will be taken against you.
Mr. Vikram, I think what I want us to look at is the fact that, you know, we have emphasized the fact that we have people who have been practicing this profession even unknown to them. Now, you know, we also emphasize the fact that people don't value what is offered to them freely, actually.
Yeah.
So, and then we are saying that this should be a mediation, a way of life. If you are doing something as a way of life, you're supposed to also earn from it. If you are earning from it, it has a way of encouraging you. So people who are practicing this thing at the grassroots level and those who are practicing it as their own way of life, how do we actually encourage them to begin to attach value to it so that they can begin to earn from those things?
Nanchang, I tell you, we had that session, like I said, on mediation, who pays. We have to have that discussion. One is that the community identifies these people. People are going to talk about it. That then does the community put some funds together and gives it to these people? Because of course they're providing a service to the community. So can that be one option? Of course, if users have to pay for the service provided by them, they should be made. Of course, you have to sensitize them to the aspect that this service that they are providing, and on the other end, the other process, if you do not resolve your dispute, there is a cost there. People are willing to pay lawyers, whatever it comes. But for this base level where someone can help you resolve the dispute, the value is not put to it, only because where do you find that value? Where do you say, okay, mediators should be paid this much? Then you go to one schedule which is in the court system, and that shows you that's it. Nigeria, $40 for the entire mediation. That is value for a mediator. Now you put a price to a mediator. I don't know about Malaysia. They will tell me about Malaysia.
They have a flat fee, right,
How much is that?
I actually am not too familiar with that, because within the court system, when the court directs mediation, usually the judges or the court registrars will conduct the mediation, and they don't get paid for it.
I know, like mediators, it's a flat fee if it's like MMC. But like I know lawyers like yourself, we usually require a certain percentage of the it's very flexible in that sense.
What I'm saying is that what I'm saying is that if there is already somewhere a price list, it's like a price list. I call it a price list. In Nigeria, there is a price list.
And that's
mediator. How much does a mediator cost? $40. Okay, buy two and get one free, kind of thing.
Someone has valued you already.
It is actually put down to that level.
No, but I've been told even in villages, right, within the indigenous communities, they actually, when they fight over like a coconut, when the coconut drops, right, and then who gets the coconut, they charge. They said like they will get like a trusted person within their community, and they said, I'll pay you, say 50 ringgit or 30 ringgit, and you solve this, and things like that. And they just price it up to them,
I'll tell you how it's going to work. If people understand, on one end, I'm saying all those people who are doing it for free in the court system, stop it. Just stop it. We're not going to do it for free. We are going to do it at market value.
I think we need to take it out of the court then.
No, we don't have to take it up with the court.
Well, please, I do it for free.
We will take it up with the people who are actually giving the free service. We are not interested in the courts. Courts, let me tell you now, but let me put it across to you how it's happened, and I see it as a very sad situation. What happened was 2005, the first mediation center in a court started in India. So the pioneer of that, Mr. Shriram Panchu, has been on my show, and I don't know whether you saw any of those sessions, mediation in India, he was there. So he's been, of course, kind of taking it and developing it there. On the other end, of course, it's been 17 years now. So 17 years, it's been given for free. Let's look at it free, because the amount that is sometimes given as an honorarium is nothing compared to the seniority of the people who do it. So I'll talk about that separately. So, okay, so now this happens. Suddenly what he sees is that these judges, they have created a mediation center, and it's actually an arbitration and mediation center. So they created that, and they as what his article says, that they've told some tribunal, you should send matters to that center. So what he's saying is serving Supreme Court judges, setting up a center like that, getting land for almost nothing, where the value of the land is major in one of the major cities in our country, getting that, and then because they have that position to get matters referred there. So
Yeah.
can you imagine what that's happened? Then he wrote that article. So to counter that, one judge wrote an article. And what I do is, let me show you what the judge writes. And I found it really sad because they have been benefiting from free. That's totally free. They've been benefiting there because obviously the fact that the backlog is coming down. So what does he write? What hypocrisy is it? The free mediation rendered pro bono is the only way to promote mediation. That's what the courts did. All these years, that's the only thing they did. And now today, when they've got the private work coming in and seeing the money coming there, now suddenly this becomes the way to promote mediation. 17 years, people have lived. There are mediators who have the passion. They have been practicing in that court only because they felt that they wanted to give back to society in a way, just do it for free. Suddenly that becomes now, oh, that's not the only way. That's why that was never the only, that was never the way. That's what I'm saying, Nanchang. Nanchang, you have to start that movement. All mediators in the court system, we are not going to do it for free. There is going to be, like Intan said, it is going to be a percentage of the dispute. That's one option. Even Mr. Panchu has started saying that. I was so happy. I've been talking to him for so long. Now he's started saying this, that only those people who can't afford a mediator, that is pro bono. That's why we had one session in the conference on difference between free and pro bono. Pro bono is to a person who can't afford it. Free is to a person who can afford it, who can actually pay lawyers in the mediation process huge fees, but the mediator gets nothing in that. What kind of justice is that? And this is discrimination happening in the court itself, whom we go to when there is discrimination. So that's how sad the situation is. So we have to take it up on a larger level. What is happening is that no one talks against the judiciary, because again, the colonization mindset, oh, judiciary, no one touches them. What they do, they sit on a pedestal. All three of us are from a colony, former colonies. That whole thing has been ingrained in people's mind. We have to break all that. Look, that pedestal was okay in that when you were a colonizer's court, you were the colonizer's judge. Come down to earth. I mean, how is that going to happen? How will you change that? It's going to be a slow process, because that institution, the most inefficient institution in the entire country, gets away with 20 years to keep someone in jail. Sometimes an innocent person staying in jail for 20 years. I was to give in an example. One person in the trial courts was convicted, given the death penalty. 11 years later, the Supreme Court acquitted the person. 11 years of his life, the guy sat there thinking he's going to be hanged. Can you imagine? And he was innocent. Who finds out after they find out? Luckily, it was 11 years. I mean, don't quote me on the 11 years. It could be 12 years, could be 14 years. I think it was 11. But I'm just saying, can you imagine that you can, because you're a colonizer's court, I keep still saying you're a colonizer, you can send someone to innocent person to jail only with the larger thing we say. No innocent person should be convicted, even if hundreds of guilty people go free. By putting him in jail, you've convicted him, even without some time before trial. There are people in this country who've been in jail longer than what they would have been if they had been convicted on day one. Can you imagine that situation? You understand the situation?
Wow.
They've served more time in jail than they would have got if they had got the maximum sentence. And these are judges sitting. These are judges sitting there doing all. I mean, look. For finally, you can't take someone's freedom away for a day also. So become. All I keep saying is, become efficient yourself. Create an institution which is efficient. I don't want to push mediation to people saying, oh, if you go to court, it will take 10, 20 years. So settle. We are going again. That is not the mediation that I want to develop. The mediation is because you want to, from your side, want to understand the other person. It's value-based negotiation. All this interest-based negotiation people talk about, I'm beyond that. Value-based negotiation, you're understanding the other person, the person's difficulty maybe. You're looking from a human, it's a humanistic approach to mediation. That's the mediation we want. Not put a, oh, no, This will cost you so much in the court. This is how much time it'll take. So you should get. No, you should not do it for that reason. That's no reason. That's not justice at all. When people say mediation is access to justice. What access to justice is? You actually put a gun on the guy's head. In countries, say in the US, the costs are so high that a person is going, it's like a gamble. I go to court, I will have to pay so much fees. Let me, okay, I will settle. Now that person is not happy with the process. So mediation doesn't take off. Today, if 100 million cases go in the US in the courts in a population of 300 million, is because where do we say mediation has taken off or people are doing it in some other way? They're still going to court. So there is some issue somewhere, which is we have to dig deeper into that and look at it from us developing mediation in the right way with the right people. And that is why those people for whom it's a way of life, it's very important to take them with us. Only then will that user experience is guaranteed. And if user experience, like I told you that yesterday, that person from Ivana was there, for them, everything is built up on the finally the log and everything on the user experience. When we already have that available to us, why not use that first? Let's get these people into the process. Let's get them into the mediation world. Then everyone has their limitations. Even say lawyers have their limitation. Everyone doesn't do all the matters. Some people do certain matters. Then you have these senior lawyers who do some other matter. They have been churned out of the process only. Everyone in terms of their ability in any profession is not the same. Otherwise, everyone would be in every profession will be the top lawyers in the world. Some people get that. So the churning process will happen from these people. The people who have maybe more expertise will be given better matters, in the sense more high value matters maybe. So of course they should have an opportunity to earn more from those matters. So all that with that churning process will happen. But with the right people, if you don't put the right people out there, the user experience won't be good, and then mediation never takes off. So first we will give.
It comes back to awareness, I think, and it helps if people can see how mediation, how good mediation works, and how it benefits a lot more than these other.
Yeah, but you guys have to help me. You have to help me. The next session is mediation and the movies. The person who suggested the topic hasn't landed up. So if I shut mediation and movies, if I shut this session and I start that session, please talk a little bit about it. So at least we have a session going out. So allow me, please. Okay, let's conclude this one. So of course, Talitha, you will get the last opportunity first, because you suggested the topic. So Inthan is going to just kind of close this session, and then Nanchang, and then you. So Inthan, just close the session and we'll start that session after that.
Very briefly, thank you again for having me. I just feel so inspired what you just said about, injustice and lack of trust in institutions, right? I feel that with mediation, if you kind of shape the next generation, the younger people, to become, natural mediators with no self-interest, like I said, the whole idea that when you see someone with that potential, with the mediator mindset, as you call it, that should be the hashtag, that should be your brand. The immediate response is, why don't you join politics? That should be eliminated. It should be inbuilt and ingrained in them. It should be a natural instinct where they're like, I'm a mediator. This is my responsibility in my community and society. And if they want to develop then they go on and become real mediators later. So I feel that from this session, mediation as a way of life, that should be the foundation of it. And we should all do our part to achieve this, right? In our various communities, in our own societies, in our households, in our everyday lives, is to really bring up the next generation of mediators to see it as a way of life and not as a way to build fame or money or things like that. It should be a responsibility, sense of responsibility, like, as a mediator, this is what I should do. I should lessen conflicts, right? I should restore trust in institutions. I should hold on to, someone should feel honored to become a mediator. So I think, on that note, thank you again for having me.
No, thank you for being here. It's always nice to listen to your view. And I'll just take one step forward from what you said. As people are actually exposed to these people who are impartial people or omnipartial, and that's the word being used, okay, whatever word you use, being impartial or omnipartial, when they actually get exposed to these people and they see these people exist, they will then bring them, I feel, I mean, that's what I want. They will bring them as the leaders. So they will, so then when you start from the grassroots, develop it at the national level, then at the global level, when we see that mindset, when you're across the table, when you're talking in every kind of, it could be, there are all kinds of arrangements that even countries have to do. When they have these people sitting there, it'll be a different atmosphere. And then you will be happy that when you actually see this happening. So large thing, we have time. We're not doing this is just 2026. We're just putting things together. Then we'll take it another 5 years, another 10 years. So that's not a problem. We'll take it. It's a step.
Take
Yes,
it step.
Nancha. Yeah. Yes, Nancha. A closing kind of thing.
Well, I will say thank you to Mr. Vikram for putting this conference together, and to Talita and Intern. I appreciate you for making yourself available. Well, as a closing remark, I will say that since conflict is inevitable in our society, it therefore means that when we make mediation and conflict resolution a way of life, we are going to live in a society that will be peaceful. So it means that anywhere we are, anywhere we find ourselves, when we see a situation that requires our attention, as a natural instinct that comes to us first, we will want to see how these things are resolved, as opposed to people who may want to side with one party against the other and feel that, oh, this person is justified to do what he is doing. So I think we are going to have a safer society when we have mediation, when we develop mediation as a way of life. And I will urge Instant, please, you need to connect, let us connect. Let's take this thing away from, let's take it from here. Let's try and develop something or do something. Let's see how we can connect and make this thing happen by God's grace. So yes, thank you.
Thank you
very
so much
yes.
for your inspiring input as well. Thank you so much, Nancha. I learned so much from you tonight, and I look forward to connecting with you and also Talita in the near future. Thank you.
Talita has to close the session. Yeah, Talita.
Well, thank you, Vikram, for such a very live discussion on mediation as a way of life. I think the takeaway from today is awareness as to what mediation process actually is very important from the grassroots level itself. And what's beautiful about mediation is you don't necessarily need accreditation to do it. You can inculcate this from the youngest of a child up until an adult. So I look forward to seeing what Vikram will do within the next 10 to 20 years to take this.
Don't be a spectator, Talita. You don't have to be a spectator. You have to be part of the process. We don't want spectators.
I
spectators on YouTube. Okay, let me just point out.
I look forward to partnering with you within the next 10 to 20 years.
Tabitha, you Talita. Tabitha has put some messages. I just want to read that. Why Tabitha is not here? Tabitha, why are you not joining us? That's your decision, but you should have been here. She says, Intern, yes. She's familiar with this when you said, oh, why do you want to be a yoga meditation practitioner in the commercial sector? So a familiar one, she says. Then she says,
all the time.
Yeah, Tabitha is actually, she's based in the Netherlands, and she had suggested that topic, neurodiversity and mediation. And she brought in a friend of hers who's autistic, and she sensitized us to certain aspects. So another comment from her is, sounds more like community arbitration when a trusted person inside a community listens to all parties and then concludes to a decision that would be imposed, right? Which is area, but not mediation, mediation. So of course, that aspect will always come up. This aspect that is not, we don't have to, definitely we have to tell people that's not mediation. And also this sensitization of those village heads, those priests, those imams, that look, I've been talking about it, that you are going to be irrelevant to them in relation to dispute resolution if you do not understand that they don't want to be told what to do. They want to have their free will. But yes, you can always suggest. And like I said, if you suggest and they want to accept what you're saying because they feel they want to be part of the community, perfectly all right. But they should have a choice. So that if you have the authority to impose a solution, don't do that. Another one, Tabitha says, I think many children with a bicultural or migrant background are natural mediators as they are unknowingly trained to move between worlds and help representatives of each world understand the other on a daily basis. Very nice, Tabitha. Thank you very much. And like I said, you could have joined us, but yes, you have not. Because what she's done is she's very nice. She says, I watch it on YouTube while I'm working. But what about the people who have to contribute by
Number one
clicking?
fan.
So let me just close this session. Let me start that. Please give your inputs on mediation and the movies. So thank you very much. Both three of you, wonderful conversation. I loved the discussion. And of course, looking